Give it a few more seconds. Are you able to hear me? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first season, our first episode of Cutting It Straight. I am your host, Lizandria Ritchie. Cutting It Straight is a conversation about being relevant and transparent in today's culture climate. And hopefully, through our guests' life's experiences, someone can see that no matter who you are or what you've been through, there are possibilities out there. So speaking of our guest, he is considered to be a cultural trendsetter. He has baffled the minds of many by succeeding when all of the odds were stacked against him. He is also known to be a promising candidate for the cover of GQ, Esquire, Black Enterprise, and Sportsnet magazine for the retired. But more importantly, he is a genuine, loving soul who has a big heart for God's people and for people in general. So at this time, please let me introduce Pastor Carlos D. Spates, the senior pastor or servant leader of New Trinity Community Church, better known as the Grace Place. So welcome, Pastor Spates.
Thank you, Mrs. Ritchie. Thank you
How are
for.
you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you. And
Good.
yourself?
I'm doing good. So we want to start off with just a couple of questions. If you could tell us about yourself, your birthplace, your family growing up, your existing family, your greatest memories growing up, any hobbies or mentors that were in your life that were influential.
Wow. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. I was born in Panama City, Florida, which is northern Florida, not too far from Pensacola, Florida. Uh, I am the middle child of five kids. My mother had five kids. I'm the middle child of five kids. Um, there are three boys. Well, one girl, my sister passed away several years ago. Maybe I think it's been about three, maybe about four, maybe 4 or 5 years now. I really don't keep track of the years because of the close bond that we shared together.
Right.
And so, but yeah, so it's four boys. It was four boys, one girl, and then my father. I have a brother, and I have an older sister that lives in Spain. So I was born in Panama City, Florida. Yeah, I have an older sister that lives in Spain, uh, who I recently got in contact with, and we're enjoying getting to know one another. Um, grew up in Panama City, Florida, probably about to the age of maybe 7 years old, so 6 or 7 years old. And then after that, my mom moved down to Tampa, Florida, which is Central Florida. And I think we lived in Tampa, Florida, with an aunt of mine for about several years, and not several, well, 3 or 4 years, 5, 6 years, somewhere like that. And then we moved over to St. Petersburg, Florida. And so all of my upbringing, all my upbringing up to the age of 25 was I resided in St. Petersburg, Florida, which was St. Petersburg, Florida it's a special place that I'm attached to. And
Yeah.
so I grew up in the projects, a place called Brown Marks Project, not too far from 22nd, not too far from 22nd Street, but another project, well-known project, is Jordan Park Project. So I grew up in the project, single mother of five kids. So my upbringing was very unique. Watched my mother raise five kids on her own, and so I had to become an adult at a very early age. My older brother and the one after him, they lived with my aunt, so it was basically myself, my mom, and my younger brother, and so I basically had to become quote unquote the man of the house at an early age. So I consider myself to be an old soul because I don't really think I had the privilege to be a kid because I had to take on those responsibilities
Right.
of making sure that my younger brother and my sister was taken care of so that my mother could go to work
Mhm.
and provide a living um, for us. And so my upbringing was a kid who was raised a certain kind of way. We were raised in the church. Um, my mother was a strict disciplinary. I mean, my mother she didn't play. She didn't care where you were. And some of my friends I see George Walker on over in the comment section, but George is one of my friends who I grew up with on the north side in Jamestown. And they can attest, there were many days I got whippings in front of everybody. Mom didn't care. If she said something, she told you to be in the house at a certain time, whatever the case was, told you not to go somewhere. If you went,
Mhm.
there were consequences to pay.
Yeah,
And
repercussions.
so, and the repercussions, and for some reason I just didn't get it. I was hard headed. I just continued to do the same thing over and over again. So my early childhood was one of trying to fit in,
Mhm.
trying to really be somebody who I wasn't, which caused me a lot of caused my mother a lot of heartache and pain, and caused me there's some hard lessons I had to learn because
Mhm.
I chose, not because anyone made me do anything, because I wanted to be like everybody else. It seemed like everybody else had it better. Um, they got to do more than we got to do. My mother was, when I say she was strict, she was strict. You could barely do anything. And I understand she was just now I understand later on in life, she was just trying to protect us from some things that we were not aware of. But my mother was and still is a great provider. And she was not only my mother, but she's my best friend, my confidant. Doesn't mean we ain't buddy, no, not that kind. And I say that because, now parents want to be friends, with their kids and the kids, but that's a whole nother friendship. When I mean friends, I mean, I could tell my mother anything. I can talk to her about anything, no matter what it is, and she'll sit there and listen.
And even though you're grown, she still lays down the law, right?
Yes, yes, she's still look at.
if needed.
Hey, I'm 53 years old,
Hmm.
and I still respect my mother as if I was 7 or 8 years old. There's certain things I'm not going to say around her. There's certain things I'm not going to do around her because I was just raised that way. My
Hmm.
grandmother was that way. My grandfather, from my understanding, was that way. My mother
Hmm.
raised us that way. My mother raised us to respect adults, even if we don't agree with them.
That's right.
Respect them. And so I was raised to respect people. So
Maybe
yeah.
we need to bring that back.
You know what? If they were going to do that, they should have did that a long time ago. I don't know about this young generation now. Uh,
Hmm.
I think a lot of what we see is a lack of it.
Yes.
But it's almost like a parent. You don't allow your kids to run wild for almost 17 years, and then when they get 18, you want to start laying down the law. Nine
Yes.
out of
Correct.
10, they're not going to listen. That's just the reality. But I believe there's still hope. I think there's still hope for young people if
Yeah. Yeah.
if we would just open our ears and listen to what they're saying, because really 9 out of 10 they just want to be heard. They just want to be heard.
Hmm.
Want to be heard.
Hmm. With that being said, did you have any mentors growing up, or even now?
Mentors growing up. You know, mentors growing up. Let me see. There was a man by the name of Mr. Al Green. Uh,
Hmm.
his son, he had his own, he had his own family. I played baseball. I grew up in a household, as I say, my father was not there. That's not for discussion right now, but we can talk about that at a later time. And Mr. Al, in a way, became a father figure to me. I played baseball. I played baseball. At one time, I was the only black kid in the baseball league until his
Mm.
son started playing. But I can't think of too many baseball games that Mr. Al Green wasn't there. Not the
Mm.
singer, not the singer, but Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Al Green, a
Hmm.
great man, a great man. I mean, showed me a lot of support, showed me a
Hmm.
lot of love, as if I was his own son, and he's going on home to be with the Lord. But him, Mr. Al Green. There was another man, and my mother's gonna get me for not. Mr. RC, Mr. RC Barnes. He drove cabs, and he was a
Hmm.
very good friend of the family. Um, he was a hardworking man, and
Hmm.
so I watched these men. Both of these men were hardworking men who loved their family. So I watched these men, and I admired these men. But most of all, probably my oldest brother was my mentor. My older brother, he's Apostle Michael Long. He's been out here many times to preach at the church. Everything he did, I wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
He
Hmm.
dressed. I wanted to be like him. Everything he did, and the irony of that, he started preaching, and I became a preacher. I didn't. Not that part. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't want that part. But you know, it is what it is. God knows what's best. So
That's
those
right.
those those are my mentors. I would say my mentors as a kid.
Hmm.
My mentors as an adult is the late Dr. Chapman. You remember Dr. Chapman,
Yes.
Dr. Chapman,
A greater
father
community in
figure,
Pacoima.
father figure to me. Once he found out I was pastoring the church, he came and he took me under his arms. The story behind that, many people know, and I gave that story. When I moved out here in 1994, at the church I'm pastoring now, Dr. Chapman was doing a revival on a Friday night, and I had just got
Hmm.
out here, and I just got out of the world where the world was still in me, and I was trying to get my life on track. And
Hmm.
he was preaching, and I'll never forget. I don't remember what the message was, but I remember
Mhm.
the sermon hitting me so hard that I
Mm.
felt something burning inside of me that I'd never felt before. And the next thing you know, I found myself up at the altar giving my life back to Christ. So, I mean, there's just
Wow.
so many. I don't want to say too many names. I could
Mhm.
just go on, but Dr.
Mhm.
Chapman is one that really reigns within me now, and I have many spiritual fathers and mentors now
Mhm.
who I can lean on and I admire, highly admire.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges you had to face in your life?
I think
Like
the
one
big
one that really stands out.
I think the biggest challenge that I had to face was leaving St. Petersburg. Um, and we didn't get into too much details, but
Mhm.
yeah, I can kind of get into that without being lengthy because we don't want this to be
Mhm.
too long. Because I mean, my life, when I really look at my life, there's so many experiences that I've gone through in life.
Mhm.
My biggest challenge was leaving St. Petersburg, Florida, leaving the life that I was living. Um, Most people in California probably don't know. I've been to prison twice.
Okay.
I started selling drugs at the age of uh, 17 or 18, I think.
Mhm.
Had my didn't have I didn't have my first child or my first daughter. I was 16, 17 years old, playing
Mhm.
basketball. Had scholarships to go to college and play ball, and
Wow.
and was pretty good at it. And young lady I was seeing at that time got pregnant, and hey, like I said, I had role models that you take care of your responsibilities. So eventually
Mhm.
I ended up leaving my mom's home at a young age, was working out on the beach, going to school, trying to play ball, and work at the
Mhm.
same time to provide for this baby and not knowing what to do because didn't know anything about being a father. So one thing that led into me trying to figure out another way to make money to provide a living for
Mhm.
now this family I got, and I'm a child myself at that
Mhm.
particular age. So I started selling drugs, and got into that and that cost me a couple trips of going to prison, not lengthy sentences, but I tell people like say, well, how long were you in prison? Look at one day in jail. Look at 1 minute in jail is too long. It's too
Right.
long. People
Right.
start comparing how long you've been there as if you've really done some time. Hey,
Mhm.
anytime your freedom is taken away from you,
Yes,
that's not a good feeling.
that's
And
right.
so one of the biggest challenges were because that lifestyle allowed me to have certain things that I couldn't have growing up. And
Mhm.
so to leave that lifestyle and move to California, that was a great challenge for me. That was a great
Mhm.
challenge for me to not only leave, but not to go back. I
Mhm.
had I had people have called me that I used to run the streets with, and
Mhm.
they asked me, "How did you do it? How did
Mhm.
you just walk away from everything and not trying to boast or brag about what I was doing?" Um, but it was pretty on a pretty major scale where the judge, last time I seen the judge, he told me, he said, "I'm gonna tell you this, Mr. Spades." He said, "I want to see you in my courtroom again." He said, "The next
Mhm.
time you come back, the minimum I'm going to offer you is 25 years. That's the minimum I'm going to offer
Wow.
you is 25 years. And if you don't take that, I'm going to give you the max."
Wow.
So the challenge after I looked around one day and I realized that all my friends were either going to jail, getting lengthy sentences, or they
Mhm.
were or they were getting killed. And those roads, that road,
Mhm.
I didn't want either one of those. So I made a decision, not on my own, but my
Mhm.
father allowed me to come to California
Mhm.
to start a new life.
Praise God. Wow. So you never went back after that, that was just it for you?
It took me, look
Came
at
here.
it, it took me 5 years,
Wow.
5 years before I even thought about going back home.
Hmm.
But here's the thing, even though I moved to California, I found out that the same trouble you can get in Florida, you can get you can get into California. Because I got out here, and though I was going to church with my parents, because my dad, even though I was 25, the thing is, if you live up under my roof, I don't care if you're 25 or 55, you're going to church.
That's
And
law.
so my father being a deacon of the church,
Hmm.
in church, but I started going to club and I started meeting people. And the next thing you know, I was almost into that same old life. And I had to hit the pause button and say, hey, you didn't come out here for all that. If you were going to do that, you could have stayed in Florida and did that. So
Hmm.
it was a challenge. It was a challenge not to go back because
Yeah.
financially, I was not used to, I was blessed that my father owned his own business, retired military. So I had a job, I had a roof over my head.
Hmm.
But still, your flesh, when your flesh becomes accustomed to,
Oh yeah. Certain
some
lifestyle.
of the quote unquote fame that comes with being a drug dealer,
Hmm.
where people know you. And it's not so much they love you, they want to be attached to what they think you have.
Mm. So with that, my next question was going to be, how did you get to where you are today? So coming from St. Petersburg, Florida, to Oxnard, California, and having to go through, I'm sure, a series of things. How did you get to where you are today?
On the Greyhound bus, on the Greyhound, I said, on the that's my guy. I got here on the Greyhound. Hey, the funny part about it is that I had never flown before. And I was
Okay.
here, and so I took a 3-day bus ride to California, which allowed me to think for those 3 days. I would never do that again, Lord. Please, not on the bus for 3 days. That's a whole nother episode. How did I get to where I am now? Were there times I wanted to go back to Florida? Yes, there were times there were challenges because
Mhm,
Oxnard and where I was from, it was just a culture shock.
mhm,
I remember I remember the Greyhound bus getting off the freeway and turning on Gonzales, and all I saw was fields. And the first thing I was like, Lord, I was like, where in the world? I was like, okay, where I'm at. And then I remember asking somebody like, where's the black neighborhood? And people looked at me like, what do you mean black neighborhood? I was like, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. You mean tell me y'all y'all don't have no. But the more time went by, I realized it was a good place for me because it was slow
mhm.
pace. It was slow pace. It was slow pace. Nobody knew me. I didn't have to
Right.
look over, I didn't have to be looking over my shoulder, wondering who was going to try to rob me or wondering if the police was going to, something was going to resurface from my past. So it was the first time I think I got a chance to breathe
Mhm,
and start to get to know me, who I was,
mhm,
who I really was. And so how did I get to where I am now? I think through a lot of perseverance and a lot of fight, because I could have easily went back home. I could have easily went back home. There were justifiable reasons in my head because some stuff started happening out here
mhm.
um, that the old me would have went back home.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you stayed. A lot of people are glad that you stayed.
I'm glad I stayed too.
So, before we have about 4 minutes left, but I wanted to ask two questions. One, your shirt,
Yes.
what is
Oh,
that about?
that's the CDS. That's CDS
Mhm,
ministry. It's time. Of course, I'm pastoring a wonderful church. Um, I've been given a place entrusted with something beyond my wildest imagination I never asked for. But God has spoken to me, and it's just time for me. Not only I'm not leaving my church, I'm not God's
Mhm.
church. It's just my personal ministry outside of that particular ministry. So that's the
Mhm.
logo, CDS. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming. CDS Ministries. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes along with that. That as time goes by over the next several months, that we will be revealing on these different social media uh, platforms. So that's Carlos Dion. Most people probably don't know that D stands for Dion. Carlos Dion Spates.
Yeah.
Dion Spates. The D stands for Dion.
Well, Carlos Dion Spates, um, you're on your way to that GQ cover magazine. I can see. You said more things are coming. Can't wait.
Lord Jesus. Yeah.
So, for some young man out there who is struggling just with life situations that are going on with COVID and anything else, who may be thinking about heading into being a drug dealer or possibly doing drugs, what message do you want to send to them, or can you send to them?
For someone who is thinking about turning to a life of doing things that are not right, I
Hmm.
would say
Hmm.
doing things. I would let them know that there are other choices. There are better choices. Um, I would say if it that old saying, uh, if it looks too good to be true, then it is, and that's what a life of crime is. It looks good on the surface until you have to deal with the consequences. Um, um, I'm where I am now, but if I hear a lot of people say I wouldn't do anything over again, well, I'm not going to say it. Say there's some stuff that I wish I wouldn't have did
Hmm.
because it detoured my destiny, but it didn't destroy my destiny.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful that God allowed me to be detoured, but He
Right.
did not allow my destiny to be destroyed. And so where I am now today has been because of perseverance and determination. And
Hmm.
so I would tell a person that, look at, you can do anything. You can do, if God puts something in your mind, if He puts something on your heart, you can do anything if you have patience, number one.
Yeah.
Uh, it's going to take some perseverance, and
Yeah.
it's going to take some determination. It's going to take some fight. Anybody can give up.
Hmm.
Anybody can give in. And look at, trying to do stuff that what appears to be the easy way is giving in. Compromising, you can't compromise. There's no substitute for hard work. And when you actually have to do the work, the reward is it is so fulfilling.
Hmm.
And I know that from what I'm speaking from. I'm not speaking from stuff. Yeah, I have a degree in theology. I'm not speaking from stuff that I read in a book. I'm speaking from a place of life,
Right.
experiencing that you can come from the projects. You can come from a single parent home where your father wasn't there because he chose not to be there.
Hmm.
And that's not saying anything about my father, because me and my father right now, we have a wonderful relationship. You can come from a place where you're considered to be the oddball and you don't fit in with everybody. Kids used to pick on me every day. Most people don't know. I fell down some stairs when I was a little kid in the projects. I fell down my mom told me, get off the stairs, stop playing on those stairs as a little boy. And I'm a hard headed, and we lived upstairs, and I fell down some stairs and I busted my head open. in the back, wide open. And my mom didn't know at that time, she put a hot compress on it. And what happened was, putting that hot compress, it sterilized those areas. So for many years, when the hair grows back, it don't grow back in those areas.
Okay.
So kids used to pick on me. And you know, kids pick on me and make fun of me. So they laugh at me, they pick on me, they crack jokes. And I went through all that whole bullying thing because I've never really been a fighter until you really got to push me. So you can go from where people bully you. You can go from just the whole odds against you. I'm a living witness that you can beat those odds. You can overcome those obstacles if you make up in your mind that what other people have to say about you really doesn't matter. It's what you believe about yourself. And that's where I had to come. That's the point that I came to the realization that it doesn't matter what other people think about me, because those who know me, and those who don't know me, that's their issue and not mine. So I would tell a person who is on that line and who's caught up in being glamorized by the fast money or just what the world has to offer, I would tell that person that stuff is temporary. It is temporary. Eventually, sooner or later, it will be like a vapor. You'll lose it. But also, I would tell you that most of the people who have all those things, there are other things inside of them that they are struggling with that you don't see. It's a story that they'll never tell you how empty and how void they are inside. So I would tell a person, you can do anything. You can become anything. You can achieve anything, but it's going to take, there's no substitute for hard work. I didn't get to where I am today without working hard. It just don't happen. It don't happen.
And that goes for a young man or a young woman, but I said young man because you are a man and you were young once and you've gone through some things and you survived, and thank God you survived. So, but again, that can go for female or male at this point.
You're right. I would tell a young lady, look here, value yourself. Same thing I tell a young man, value yourself. When you go out there and do something that's illegal or try to get quick money or whatever the case is, you are devaluing yourself. And I'd say that's the same to a young lady. Don't know your worth, know your value.
Yes.
Know your value, know your worth, know your potential.
Most definitely.
Know that you can achieve anything.
Well, Pastor Spates, thank you so very much for this 35 minutes. And next week, we will be at it again, asking you some more questions and getting more insight and more wisdom about life's issues and how to deal with them. And thank you, everybody who's joined in to Cutting It Straight. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great evening.
God bless you. Thank you for having me.